My rich aunt found out I was living in my car while working two jobs to pay for college, and my cousins were making fun of me to everyone. Now she's excluded them from her will, and my uncle is livid. I, 19F, have been struggling to make ends meet while attending college, and I never thought I'd be sharing this story, but recent events have left me completely shocked and overwhelmed. The way my life has changed in the past few months feels like something out of a movie, but every word of this is true. My parents passed away in a car accident when I was 16, and while they left me some money, most of it went to settling their debts and medical bills. I still remember the day of the accident like it was yesterday. I was at school when the principal called me to her office. My whole world shattered in that moment. The following months were a blur of funeral arrangements, paperwork, and trying to figure out how to survive on my own. I had to grow up overnight. I've been basically on my own since then, working two jobs while trying to maintain my grades and afford tuition. My aunt Sarah, 45F, is quite wealthy. She's my mom's sister and has always lived a very comfortable lifestyle with her husband Tom, 47M, and their two kids, my cousins Jake, 20M, and Emma, 18F. Growing up, we were close, but after my parents passed, they became somewhat distant. They'd invite me to family gatherings occasionally, but I could tell they viewed me as somewhat of a burden. I remember last Christmas, they didn't even bother setting a place for me at the main table. I had to eat at the kids' table with my cousin's friends who were visiting. My aunt Sarah noticed and seemed uncomfortable, but she didn't say anything at the time. Looking back now, I think that might have been when she first started noticing how I was being treated. Last month, during a family dinner at their house, I was completely exhausted from working double shifts all week. I had dark circles under my eyes and could barely keep myself awake. My cousins started making jokes about how I looked like a zombie and asked if I was doing drugs. I tried to laugh it off, but it hurt. Just the night before, I had been curled up in my car's backseat, trying to stay warm while studying for my midterms using the light from my phone because I couldn't afford to waste gas by running the car's battery. My cousins had no idea what it was like to worry about whether you could afford to eat that day, or to have to choose between buying textbooks or paying for a hot shower at the gym. They've always had everything handed to them on a silver platter while I've been struggling just to survive. The breaking point came when Jake started showing off his new Tesla that his parents had bought him for his birthday. Emma chimed in about her upcoming spring break trip to the Maldives. Then they both started teasing me about my beaten-up Toyota Corolla. Jake even took photos of it and posted them on his Instagram with captions like "Guess who's living the high life?" And "Some people just don't know how to succeed in life." Emma would comment with laughing emojis and add things like "OMG, is that rust or just extra decoration?" They thought they were being funny, but each comment felt like a knife in my heart, not knowing that I'd been living in it for the past 2 weeks because I couldn't afford both rent and tuition this semester. I excused myself to use the bathroom and broke down crying. I didn't realize my Aunt Sarah had followed me and heard me sobbing. She gently knocked on the door and asked what was wrong. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe I just couldn't hold it in anymore, but everything came pouring out. I told her about living in my car, about working at the diner from 5 a.m. to 2 p.m., then rushing to my evening retail job from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., about surviving on ramen noodles and trying to study in my car using the McDonald's Wi-Fi. My aunt was horrified. She had no idea things were this bad. She immediately insisted that I move into their guest house, but I refused. I didn't want charity, especially not from family members who had watched me struggle for years without offering help. But she wouldn't take no for an answer. The next day, she showed up at the diner where I work with some papers. She had already contacted the college's financial aid office and set up a trust fund to cover my tuition. She also insisted on paying for an apartment for me near campus. I tried to refuse again, but she said something that made me cry. "Your mother would never forgive me if I let her baby girl live in a car while I live in a mansion." When my Uncle Tom found out what she'd done, he was furious. He started yelling about how she had no right to spend their money without consulting him, especially on someone who wasn't their responsibility. My cousins joined in, saying it wasn't fair that I was getting handouts while they had to earn their privileges. Apparently getting a Tesla as a birthday gift counts as earning it. The argument got so heated that my Aunt Sarah finally snapped. But what happened next showed me a side of her I'd never seen before. She stood up, walked to her office, and came back with a stack of old photos. She laid them out on the table one by one, pictures of my mom and her growing up in a small apartment, sharing clothes, working summer jobs together. "This is where we came from," she said, her voice shaking. "We weren't always rich. Your mother helped me study when I couldn't afford tutoring. She split her lunch with me when we had no food at home. She was there for me when nobody else was. And this is how you treat her daughter?" She reminded them that most of their wealth came from her family's business, which she had inherited from her parents. Then she dropped a bombshell: she was changing her will. Instead of everything going to Jake and Emma, she would be splitting her estate 3 ways between all of us cousins. My uncle and cousins went ballistic. They started calling me a gold digger and accused me of manipulating my aunt. They've been spreading rumors in the family that I made up the whole story about living in my car to gain sympathy. Some relatives have taken their side, saying I'm tearing the family apart. But here's the thing, I never asked for any of this. I was perfectly prepared to keep struggling on my own. I didn't tell my aunt about my situation to get money, I just broke down after months of exhaustion and stress. Now I'm caught in the middle of this family drama, and I don't know what to do.